To order at 4 o'clock. We start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if all the members could introduce themselves for the minute taker.
Ben Tassino.
Dick Skinner.
Jennifer Zivkak.
Paul Beckwith.
Sarah Guyman.
I am Eric Bolin. I'm the building commissioner here, and I am the ADA officer. And this is John Charbonneau. He'll just be assisting if I need any assistance with this at the beginning, and then he'll be leaving shortly. First, I just want to ask if everybody's already been sworn in.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm a ex officio member of this commission. Just for clarity, first thing we need to do is organize the commission, so I will accept motions for chair. And
I would like to be chair.
You would like to be chair. Do I have a second?
You can't, someone has to nominate you.
Somebody
You
has
can
to
nominate yourself. You can nominate yourself, can't you?
I
I don't know.
think so.
I'm not aware.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Yeah,
I
so-
nominate Ben.
Thank you.
You nominate Ben. Do we have,
nominate Ben.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, so we have a nomination and a second, open for discussion. Any discussion?
Do you accept?
Sure.
All right, then we will take a vote. So for all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
all opposed, all abstain. Okay, Ben is chosen as the chair, and the chair will now take over the meeting.
Should I sit there? Does it matter?
Yeah, come on up. So now you just do a vice chair and a clerk.
Yep. So vice chair and clerk, same exact process.
Congratulations, Ben.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Is that you or me?
So
So I'll take
same exact process, but for vice chair and clerk.
nominations for vice chair. I nominate Jen.
I accept.
Second.
Second.
Second?
Yep, we got a second. So now you vote for all in favor, opposed, and abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
You're a voting
Opposed?
member.
Aye. That's right. I forgot.
You're a voting member as well.
All opposed? And abstain. Okay. All right, next one.
Sure. Clerk.
It's clerk.
So we got Ben as chair. And your name was it Jen?
Jennifer Zivkak. Zifcak.
Okay. And for clerk? So same
I'll
process for
nominate
clerk.
Sarah.
I second.
Is clerk the same as secretary? I have to ask. What are my duties? No.
Minutes and such.
Okay.
But because it's live, I believe the town still does the minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
Do they for this board too?
I would imagine, I think they do them for all boards if they're on TV.
Usually, yes.
I know they don't do cemeteries, so I'm
Do you guys-
secretary of
yeah.
cemetery too, so.
We can ask.
But I don't mind.
Yeah.
I can do minutes and stuff.
We can definitely ask.
It might be more like personal notes for yourself and for us or something like that.
Okay. That works.
We can find out.
So motion's
Aye.
been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And abstain. Okay, well, that wasn't bad.
Okay. And just what was your name again, please?
Sarah, S-A-R-A-H. Last
All right.
name is G-U-I, if you want. M-O-N-D.
Okay. So we have organization done, so you have so you can just carry it
So
on.
discuss meeting schedule. What days of work for people?
I I think this
flexible.
time slot is pretty good.
Okay.
It's not too late in the day.
It's not too early in the day.
Yeah, I work, so I mean,
4 o'clock's okay for me.
I like
And
this time of
Thursday-
day.
Yeah, there's one other consideration, and that's room.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursdays are good for me too.
Okay. Well, so we have this room, or we can use the next room, so.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that if you guys are good with Thursdays, I'm good with Thursdays, because the other boards I'm on don't meet on Thursdays 99% of the time. So as long as no one else has a conflict, I'm okay with Thursdays. And then, I don't know if we want to do once a month, I'm thinking, or twice a month, or the first Thursday and the third Thursday, or however you guys want to do it, is up to me, is up to you guys too. I mean, we're a board, so.
Where we're starting, should we do every 3 weeks?
That was kind of what initially went through my head, was at least
Yeah.
the start of that, while we kind of figure out where we're going, what we're doing,
'Cause we
how
could
much we're
change
going to
it
be
later.
dealing. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sure.
that works.
So like the first and the third week of every month?
Yeah, that works. Does that all work for everybody?
Sure.
You should take
Does
a
that
vote
work
on
for
it.
you?
Yeah, why not the first and last?
Well, because then it's 2 weeks back to back. The first week of the month, the last
Gotcha.
week of the month.
Understand,
Yeah.
understand, okay.
So the first and third week?
Third.
I'm good.
So we have to vote on it, so does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to have our meetings the first and third Thursday of every month at 4 PM.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
I,
Aye. All opposed? And abstain? Okay.
I'm not sure if he's voting.
Dick, did you vote on that? In favor, or?
In favor.
Thank you. Okay, now if we turn to our packets. If you've been on a board before, you've definitely seen these two pieces of paper, I would think. Most people have. I don't know if, Paul, have you ever seen these before?
at home, they were, I went over
Yeah, they're
them.
online.
Yeah,
So it's the code of conduct. I'm not going to read these. You can read these at your leisure, I think. Right? I don't have to go bullet point by bullet point on the code of conduct.
No, I think though, one point that you should probably talk about is the open meeting laws and and what as far as discussions related to things here.
Yep.
And discussing it not in here, that is not allowed and shouldn't be done, but it's quite common.
Yeah.
But you should avoid it, especially if you know each other outside of here. That is a issue that is run into a lot with these various boards and commissions.
Okay.
So that's something to be specifically aware of. If there's an issue before the board, you're not supposed to, or the commission, it's not supposed to discuss it, except for in an open forum.
Yep.
And then no replying all the emails
Yes.
is a big one. Because everyone always hits reply all, even if it's, anything nowadays. That's a real big one. When you take the ethics class now, it's don't hit reply all. Does anybody have any questions on open meeting at all?
No.
Do you have anything to add? Open
No,
meeting, or-
that-
I mean, that's pretty much sums up.
Yep.
As long as it stays in these four walls, during these four walls, is really the idea.
Yep, so no,
Ben,
Yes.
I would like to apologize.
Yeah.
If you would like to do a reorganization, you can. A member is allowed to nominate themselves for chair. So if you want to redo nominations, it's your prerogative, but yes, a member can nominate themselves for an office.
okay.
So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So how do you want to handle that?
Are we all set with it, or?
I think
I'm good with the organization, the way it was formed.
yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
So, is there any questions on the handbook, the code of ethics? at all?
No.
No? That's easy. Do you have the charge of the commission, by chance?
I'm not sure. I didn't bring anything with me. I don't know if there's anything in this packet.
Does anybody have the charge of the commission that was sent out with them? If not, I can probably...
This is the list of what you guys are responsible to do.
Do you want to go over that?
I have it on my desk. Let me just see if it's in.
Are you talking about the committee handbook?
Nope, I'm on number 7. Review the charge of the commission.
Yeah. If you, I can run right down. Give me 2 minutes.
If you
to
could, that'd be
go grab
awesome.
that.
The last page of the handbook, too, there's a page for you to sign off on. It's the last page in this packet.
Yeah.
You don't have to put those in today, though, I don't think. If you want to read the handbook first, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You probably
I
want to
read
read
it.
it first.
I'm probably ready to go.
I've read it.
I believe so.
Like what the purpose and what you're.
What's the public
I
forum?
think that's what they want us to go over.
Douglas ADA Committee.
Date I was sworn in because I don't remember.
You can beat it.
It was sometime last
Today's
week.
date.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I have that,
I don't know the difference, but technically, I believe we're a commission, not a committee.
And what's the date?
The 16th.
Would it be hard to grab a couple copies of this?
I did not. Are we sure that's the document that we're looking
I'm
for?
thinking so.
Okay.
So it says, so if you look here, right, review the charge of the commission, and then this gives, commission shall.
That's
You know.
what it appears to me. Yeah, I can get some copies. It's not in this
It's not,
paperwork.
I didn't, I flipped through it. Okay. Thank you.
Get 5 copies.
So where does this go after it gets signed? 'Cause I don't have a pen.
We'll give them to Lisa in the administrative office.
Yeah, just don't read this as you're headed to bed.
That's fine.
Well, if I want to sleep, I can. Right?
So he's gonna get copies of the charge and the duty of the commission, and then we can sort of go line by line, I think is the best way to do it. Because if I read it to you,
Yeah.
if you want me to, I can definitely sit here and read it to you, but I think everybody likes to see the piece of paper in front of them. That's just my theory on it, but
It's good theory. I had it in an email, but now the email disappeared on me.
Sorry about that.
Thank
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So now that we have that piece of paper, so obviously this board can have no less than 5 and no more than 13. That was a thing we had that came up at the selectmen's meeting the first time for appointments. So the such commission shall research, we'll just go line by line, research local problems of peoples with disabilities. Does anybody have input? We can do input on these two, so. Does anybody have input?
I have input when you're ready.
I'm ready when you are.
One of the reasons that I became active in ADA is I wanted seniors to have the opportunity to take walks in the wood. So the Mozinski property is the one closest to being ready to do that. It's just that we need to make work on the entrance. And I think once we do that, the rest of it's pretty simple. So what we need to do is make sure that the slope of going in is 1 in 15 at least. My goal would be 1 in 17. 1 foot, 17 feet.
So where is this piece of property?
Mozinski property on Mumford Drive. Called Mumford Street or Mumford Avenue.
Mumford Drive.
Mumford Main Street.
Street. Anybody else?
No, as relative to the first item, I had been thinking, and I'm not exactly sure how we'd reach people, but I kind of think it would be an ideal to see if we couldn't put together some kind of a questionnaire, research form, and get it out to the people in the community to find out what their issues with the town of Douglas accessibility is.
I think that would be,
I know I have plenty of them.
I think that would be good
but I
to
don't-
try to do a community survey type of thing.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
kind of things other people are needing out there, what.
I brought an example of another town's online survey.
Oh,
That
really?
they had,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
for people to answer.
Like if we could have like printed copies, maybe here
Right.
too, somewhere people might go that don't go online, and we have one online, then.
Yeah, here, the
A lot
library.
of people, yeah,
The
Senior
library is an
center.
interesting place to put it, considering the library is not
right?
accessible.
Might not be able to get it.
I think we need to think about
Maybe
that.
it's
idea.
Accessibility
Here,
comes in
here.
a lot of ways, also hearing impaired and visually impaired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true as well, yes.
It's not accessible for walking,
Right.
difficulty. There might be other people there,
Yeah, that is,
but it is ironic.
I
Yeah.
like the idea of a community survey.
I have an idea. Our Main Street sidewalks are a disaster for anybody to walk on. I'd like to see us be able to apply for some grants maybe and do something with the sidewalks on Main Street. They're cracked, they're broken, some areas there's none. The curbing is just gone, it's worn down. I mean, I think it'd be helpful.
I definitely agree on that one. That's, it's a big deal for the step and the curb, and the transition doesn't always work fully. Does any-
Really, the only accessible spot on Main Street right now is by Gregory's Restaurant, going in the Extra Mart parking lot.
So, somebody correct me if I'm in error. My understanding of the ADA Commission is that as a commission, we interface with other committees, commissions, town offices, things like that, that we can advise, you can apply for a grant here, or you could do this, or you could do that, but that we don't actually apply for grants, we don't actually handle funds, things like that, that we actually don't do anything on our own other than advise those committees and offices and
Correct.
et cetera, that would actually be doing those kinds of things.
If I could interject.
Yeah.
You're right. I've read this, what the commission does, and I know we haven't got past number 1 yet. Got sidetracked onto other important things that the town needs, but you're correct. Number 2 talks about advising and assisting municipal officials and employees, and not everybody may be aware for projects that happen or remodeling projects in town public buildings and such, which may trigger certain ADA requirements or things like that. That's where you guys really come in to make sure those things are not forgotten about, which is easy for somebody to forget about,
Yeah.
and that those are being enforced. Or so yeah, I think everything you're saying is detailed here. Just I don't think you've gotten to
I mean, it
that
is an
yet.
advisory board, so it's sort of, we work with him and we go back and forth. So the idea, right, is to make it work. Right? So they never really had a board before. We're having a board now.
Right here, number 4, review and make recommendations about policies. Yep.
So we'll go down the list and then we'll go through them all, and then I think that's the better way to go through it, and then we'll go to the end and talk about it, if that makes sense. So number 2 is advise and assist municipal officials and employees in ensuring compliance with state and federal laws and regulations that affect people with disabilities.
We just had an example of lack of knowledge. They purchased picnic benches for out here, and they didn't purchase the picnic benches which allow a person with a wheelchair to come in the ends. They didn't buy the right thing.
That's a good example where
They,
you might have been able to interface with them and got the correct thing purchased. That's a great example.
yeah. I have a suggestion for a second item,
Go ahead, Dick.
and that's the Martin Street playground area. I've been up there recently with my ADA hat on, and it is not in compliance.
Okay. So number 3, coordinate or carry out programs designed to meet the problems of people with disabilities in coordination with programs of the Massachusetts Office of Disability. Number 4, review and make recommendations about policies, procedures, services, activities, and facilities of departments, boards, and agencies of town as they affect people with disabilities. Number 5, provide information, referrals, guidance, and technical assistance to individuals, public agencies, businesses, and organizations in all matters pertaining to disability. Number 6, coordinate activities of other local groups organized for similar purposes.
Yeah, we're already partially organized and partially in agreement with the Open Space Committee. They were talking about a trail that was ADA compliant, so that's good news.
Does anybody have any questions or input on that?
With regards to number 3, would it make sense for us as a commission to have one person who might be designated to liaison with the Mass Office on Disability? So as things come up, we have one person that kind of is designated to work with that particular office, as opposed to kind of a willy-nilly approach that somebody calls this week, somebody calls next week, and so. Just a thought.
That sounds like a good idea.
My thinking of that is technically you're the officer in charge of it.
So, as far as what my responsibilities are as the officer, so the town's required to maintain a self-assessment, which is a review of everything that's town-owned or run. and its ability to meet ADA compliance, and then to create a transition plan that when projects or things happen, that we move those, maybe prioritize them and then move them toward compliance in the future. So my role as enforcement triggers when there's a project going on in town that would then obligate the town to make that compliant. Like, for example, this road here, the sidewalks, the ramps, the crosswalks, things like that, those all trigger when they do the construction of the road. If they didn't construct the road, those requirements don't kick in, and there's nothing for me to enforce. Your role is to advise and get people moving in those directions, or to assist with those, like the knowledge, or like the park bench, somebody didn't know that that's what they were supposed to do, and you guys can advise them and say, hey, you got to make sure you have whatever number of compliant things. That's the advisory position of it. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit what my role is in this.
So I think if we had to go ask the commission something, like then we can figure out who's going to do it. But I think that if it depends, right? So it depends how it works. So some legal questions will go to them, but some have to go through him to town council first, or they talk together. I think at some point, right, if you had a question about how to do something.
Yeah, Ahmad is available for questions in training. Sorry.
No, you're good. But I think that the commission on the state level answers questions all the time. Like they have a hotline, like I believe most places do. I don't know if you've ever talked to them.
I have.
There's reps for, like, every place has a rep. When you call, I think that when we find out, when we get that far, we can pick somebody, but I do agree that, like, it shouldn't be a free-for-all of, you call one day and then you call one day, and we just, like, I think that when we have a specific task, we can pick someone to go down to do it. If that makes sense, to do the research portion or whatever you're going to do, but I think we need to get to the task first, if that makes sense,
It does. Because I was also, I guess, kind of thinking a little bit about the, if you will, picking of their brains, in terms of, what would they advise, what would they encourage us to be aware of, look at, what kind of programs might they have that would be useful to us trying to help town or other organizations, things like that, might not be problem solving, but might be querying, investigating kind of thing.
If I may jump in, so also to further clarify, if there's a enforcement of there's an active program or active something going on that requires some sort of inspection or enforcement, I would contact them if I had any question about what was necessary, if it wasn't clear in what the laws are. Absolutely, that would fall on me, and I think you're on the right path with if you have ideas or thoughts or future plans, that falls on the commission, the you members, to somehow work that all out. That's like, so we have different roles, like I'm enforcement and you're
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking in terms of their legal, role as much as maybe just kind of, informational or things like that. So, right.
That's just where my head goes normally, but
okay.
yeah, no, but no, I do get what you're saying. So if they, I'm sure, like most agencies, they have like an initiative campaign, like FEMA does, or MEMA and those guys. So they might have one. I don't know if they do. It comes. Everyone does some type of campaign. But I don't know them off the top of my head. Does anybody have any questions about the charge? It has possible votes on here.
They put that in, if you need to vote on something, they put that there.
But I'm not sure if there's anything anybody would change or we would vote at that anybody thinks.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can.
This is a Mass General law.
Right, so I think it's just
I think they just put it in there as a
placeholder.
just in case something came up for a vote. But I don't think there is.
So we'll just move on to new business. Does anybody have anything?
Yes. We don't have a budget, and I think we need to do some things that tell us what the budget should be and get that moving. So when we get to the fall group, we have a budget to put in.
Okay. So we're an advisory commission, so I'm not really sure if there would be a budget. I don't know.
I don't know, but
When I asked Lisa about that, she said, no, there isn't one.
No, I wouldn't think there would be one for an advisory commission. Yeah, there's no expenses.
exactly.
So because we don't have authorization to spend money. So if you were going to do a project and, I'm on capital improvement, so you would it would be a capital improvement project, or it'd be an article at town meeting more than likely. Do you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't have the authorization to spend money. I don't think so, if that makes sense to everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, there's no line item in the town budget. There's one for building inspector, there's one for his stuff, but there isn't a line item for ADA commission.
Yeah, I think, as far as I understand, your role is advisory, and it's a volunteer position to bring the town toward compliance with using your knowledge that you have and your expertise that other people, as best intentioned as we are, we don't necessarily know the laws as well as you do. That's your role. And so any item that is getting done would be budgeted and done through the normal process. If you're doing a trail or you're doing a sidewalk, there's budgeting, the normal budgeting process for those, and your role is to just advise and make sure.
So our role is to shape it for the ADA side and put it in a mold, and like open spaces would do it, or capital improvement would, or buildings and facilities, or whatever it is. I don't see us, it's just advising the specific board on what to do, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think as an example, what Dick was talking about, the, open space committee. They want to work on trails, they want to make trails accessible. So if they needed to know what that meant or things like that, they could certainly approach us, or we could even invite them, or whichever way we want to make that work, kind of go over. So, what are you thinking? Does it meet codes, et cetera? What do we know about the codes, et cetera? And then there are things that open space could do, like there's grants they could apply for to get some money for doing that project. So if we're aware of grants specifically linked to the disability community, we could possibly advise on, you could apply for this grant, kind of thing.
May even assist in writing of the grant if, help the person in that department. Right?
So I have a question. So I pulled up, the Massachusetts Office of Disability, and they had the page about starting a commission. If you scroll down on that, it talks about disability parking fines. So I don't know if that would apply to us, if we would be able to designate parking fines collected to a certain thing. I don't know if it applies to us, but it is on there.
We don't have a single town, HP spot.
Oh, well, that might be a problem.
So just to clarify though, so the two things a police department can enforce on private property is fire lanes and handicap parking. Those are the two things that they can do. They can't do speed, stop signs, any of that. So technically, if they go to a place and there's someone parked in a handicap spot, they can write a ticket. So it's a municipal ticket, I believe, I think, for handicap parking. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure which way it goes, but so they can write tickets for handicap parking. So the question is, you're talking about like where the money goes?
Yeah.
So, we can find out.
There is something there, I know what you're talking about,
yeah.
because I did kind of see that at one point when I was looking through, but somehow that money could come to the commission.
Probably not a big money.
I can tell you that they probably don't write many handicap parking fines. I wouldn't think so.
It's like the second thing down after how to start one, so I'm like, so do we get a grab at them?
So, I don't know how that would work, and honestly and truthfully, I don't think they write a ton of handicap parking. I don't think there's a ton of people that do it in Douglas, not like bigger cities or towns.
There's plenty of parking in this town as it is.
Yeah, Do you have anything else on that website you want to go over though?
It said something like each town commission can develop its own goals and operating guidelines. So I don't know if that's something we want to think about, what our goals and operating guidelines would be.
Have a
but-
mission statement.
Yeah, and I think maybe doing the community survey first would help, give us a particular direction maybe that we want to focus.
Yeah.
Just to that.
Ben, I guess I'd see advise in a different light. I see us advising projects, things that need to be done, but also the funds that would get them done. And then we hand that off to somebody to get it done. But I think our job also is to facilitate the amount of money that it's going to take to do any given project.
So,
It's bigger than what you're saying, and it's smaller than what Eric is saying.
So, I do think that, so if there was a project that had to be done, so we're going to make an example, right? So we're going to make Main Street paving as the example. And they got a grant or whatever for Main Street, and they were going to do the sidewalks over there, which is Jen's pet peeve. But so if we advise them on how the ADA side should be, we can put it in a mold. I don't, if you want to help me out on this one, you can. I don't know how we would get to making, like, we can make recommendations to the select board all day long. The selectmen that I've heard from have always said that, we'll always take your recommendations. We like recommendations. You guys are the board to do it. But it's all about having the money and the appropriate people to do it. So it would go to a board. It would go to buildings and facilities. It would go to the highway department. It would go to the adult social center, the people that run it to do it. That's we're just advising those people on how to do it. So I don't know how we get, like, if we find a grant that we can use and with the selectmen's approval could do something with, I think they would be on board.
I'm not talking about doing something, I'm talking about defining the cost of the project that we're suggesting should be done. So we're advising that you're going to do Main Street. Well, what would that cost? Somebody has to do what it's going to cost, and I think that's within our purview.
I see people looking at me. So, so for something like a road, right, which costs millions of dollars per mile, right? Like, of course, we want sidewalks to be done, but that's a major budgeting item and requires funding and possibly state funding and things like that. So I'm not sure if necessarily focus should be like applied to that unless it's in the near future, right? But I liked what you said about finding grants, because if there's grant money out there for, somebody mentioned something about a playground. I don't know anything about the playground, but maybe there's a grant out there that is readily available and you can get a playground upgraded quickly. And then you could go to the town and say, hey, we got this grant for whatever amount of dollars. We're applying for it, and like the town would likely, you could say, we can get the money, can you get the work done? And that's a real good, harmonious, kind of synergetic way of working together, and you can get quick things done if you can find grant money. I think that's a great idea to get grant money.
For us to push something out of this, though, we would have to go to the selectmen for it. So like other boards have to go to the selectmen or the finance committee for things, like we would have to do the same thing. So if we find a grant opportunity and we want to do it like the playground, we would have to go to we'd have to be put on the agenda at the selectmen's meeting, and we'd have to go talk about it. That is something because we can't act alone. Because we're at the advisory board.
Absolutely. But you can make a big impact doing that. But by getting yourself in front of the right people, then nobody else might have looked for that grant. And I think that's a great role for an advisory board, to say, we found these things that we can do, and these are big impact items, and we'll take care of the legwork, we just need approval.
Like, I think that's a way that we can help, right? And then the other thing is, we have a different view on things, right, for our different ways of living life. So some people might not never know, or they'll never see it, or they just won't pay attention to it because everyone is different. So if we find a thing that's wrong, right, and I'm going to be vague because everybody has their own thing, we can pretty much put a bow on it, right, with information and guided facts, so we can give it to the selectmen. And I know for a fact that they'll definitely listen. And that's something that I think we should, if you find something, or when we do, I really do like the survey idea. I'm big into surveys, because people can give their take on it and be anonymous about it, which people like to be. But you can take it and we can put it on a big spreadsheet or a colored graph, however people feel, and we can figure out the problems people have. The problem you have is people want to be anonymous. No one's going to, not saying nobody, but people aren't going to come here and sit here and tell us their struggles of life. People don't do that. No one likes to do that. So that would be, I love the idea. I think that that's definitely a new business topic for the future of questions to ask. Most definitely. So I think for the next meeting, definitely put that on the agenda, if that makes sense. Does anybody have anything else that they want to put on for next meeting while we're here for new business?
We should probably work on a mission statement, right?
Yep.
Would it make sense to have, as we're going about town doing the things that we do and whatever, would it make sense to have start looking at things, and as we note things, to maybe just even as a commission to just kind of keep a list of things that we're aware of, that we see, even to talk about it amongst ourselves, say, so who do we go to with this if we wanted to, who do we handle this? It's like, this is kind of a silly one, but, Ben was just talking about how, we live differently, we see things differently, and something that I never saw before is, like, right out here in our own parking lot for the municipal center, the wheelchair parking, it would be actually more useful to have it be the two spots right in front of the ramp, because you don't have to wheel uphill to then get to the ramp, because it's at the top of the hill, so that's a straight shot over. So, things like that, I guess, is...
So, if I may, I have a book in my office that was, the last time this was done appears to be 2007, where there was a full town-wide self-assessment. It's what it's called, self-assessment, where we do essentially what you're saying and go and look at each facility or each publicly owned or publicly operated property or program, and give it an assessment. And that is not a obligation to like, you have to fix this or something, but it's just to say, you're missing these important things, whatever they are. And I have a document for each building at that was available in 2007. One of my goals since I came on, I just came on in July, at the beginning of this month, is over the next year or so, for the next fiscal year, I'd like to have that, if possible, fully updated for every building and program and facility in this town, to fully rework that. It's been 20 years. It's due. Since you're offering, I'll get a form together, a paper. I can give you, and throughout your day-to-day, if you're going somewhere, you're welcome to update that. I can show you where we stand on it, and then you can, I don't know what's changed, but you can mark and you can assist me, and that would make the process go very quickly and would benefit the town greatly. Since you brought it up, I can definitely make that available to everybody, and then all you would have to do is send it to me. If you do a building, you can send it to me, and I'll put that right in there and update that.
I mean, I think that we can be, and one of the things that strikes me is that we can be an advisory commission, but I also kind of wonder at what point, how can we maybe find ways to be an educational commission as well? So, we're talking about people, they overlook something because they don't know about it, so how does it get more proactive to help people to be more aware of it, so that when they do something, they're already aware of it, as opposed to having to kind of go in almost in a punitive way, to kind of go in more of a community building way.
Education does fall under the purview of my role.
Okay.
But I would be happy for assistance. I can help coordinate if there's a small training or something that needs to be on a particular item, that can be coordinated, and the subject matter experts, which would be you more than me, could either get the materials or put that training on directly, and that can be coordinated. So that's also available. So if it's, I can't think of something off the top of my head, but if there's something that you think people need to be trained on or something, we could get those 5 people together and spend 20 minutes and 30 minutes or whatever it is and go over it. I'm happy to help with that.
My suggestion is we want to go slow. You go and jump in and start looking at big projects, and we're doomed to fail. So we need to get together and work as a group. We haven't worked as a group yet on anything. And go slow.
I agree. I mean, so, there's definitely things that everyone's going to see different in this, and I think that's the best part about this, right? So everybody comes from a different walk of life, and if we can, like the goal, right? So the goal is to at least try to help some people, right? Like everyone's here to help. So if we could make a couple of people's day better and easier, I think we're definitely completing the task.
If you would like to add on to next month's agenda, I will have an ADA self-assessment form made, and we can review it next month. The book is a ringed book about this thick. It's got notes and tabs. I can't make copies of it, but I'll bring it, and just to show you what I'm working with. Eventually, that will be electronic. I don't think there's an electronic version of that, just because of when it was made and how things were done at the time. But we can go over it and show you kind of what my plan is and how you guys might fit into getting that product, not product, but end result, get there, and how you guys might be able to do what you were saying. I can come prepared next meeting with those forms.
Great.
At least a template form that we can review and.
So for the next agenda, so we'll do the questionnaire, the mission statement. We'll have the running list of issues or problems. I don't know, we're going to come up with a better name for it than problems. Because that just doesn't sound good.
Complications.
Yeah, areas of improvement. I'm gonna write that down before I forget.
We used to call them opportunities.
Yep.
And then we'll review the ADA assessment that he's going to bring.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add for the next one?
I do have one item that I've been thinking about. Oktoberfest. I'd like to add that for discussion.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else for new business or add on for the next agenda? I appreciate your help with the agenda because I've never made one before, so we'll try to, during new business, make next time's agenda so it fits. Once we get a couple of them going, it will be okay because we can copy and paste and move things around. Like the first one, yeah.
When we didn't get to this week, we'll just move it to the next one. You just do the copy and paste.
I mean, there's some stuff that's going to stay for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else? Does anybody need any more information that we can track down before the next meeting?
No.
Cool. Need to adjourn.
Yep. If everyone's good, I'll take a
Oh, I
motion.
do have one thing.
Go ahead.
Adrian. I was wondering, I know we're doing over the town website, so that's like brand new and being done. Someone had asked me the other night if that's an ADA compliant website, if it meets the, I guess there are new requirements for.
Good question. I don't
For
know.
that.
I don't know anything
Okay.
about ADA
I'll
websites. I
try-
know it's a
I'll
thing.
try to find out from someone.
So that's a great area of advice, if it's being redone right now.
Right.
It's a great
Lisa
place.
would know,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll.
because
pop
Lisa
over
mentioned
there
to me
and
that
see.
she was going to make us a area on the website.
Yeah, all right, because I
Under
noticed
the
it was being
town
redone.
committees, yes.
I'll put it on as an agenda item too, so we can.
You're not talking about just getting on the web, are you talking about making the website?
So I'm
Like,
talking
for
about
visually impaired?
Right, making the website like just more easier for maybe visually impaired people, making it more intuitive, more easy to use. And someone was telling me they had rolled out a new list of like things that make a website easier.
They did.
I'm not sure
They
where to
did.
find that exactly, but but that's kind of what I was referring to, if what we're doing with the website now, kind of lines up with the new stuff.
Some of it would be that and this part of it isn't new, but some of it would be is that it would have to work seamlessly with what people use for adaptive equipment on their computers. So like screen readers, like one of the things that's incredibly frustrating is a screen reader. It doesn't read the text because the text has got some kind of coding in there, things like that messes up the screen reader. Another one is that if you have a magnification software and you're reading with the magnification software, you go to click on a link and it can't because it doesn't cooperate with the magnification software, so you have to turn the magnification software off so you can click on the link. That is not considered to be an accessible website. So that's kind of the biggest piece. I don't know what's changed since then, but when it first kind of started to roll out, that was the intent of accessible websites. So.
I think Sarah just nominated herself to be the liaison with the tech people who do the website.
That's what I can find
That's what
out.
it sounds like to me.
I'm not even sure who's doing the new website, but I'll look into that and I'll find out. I'll talk to whoever that is.
So we'll add that as an agenda item then.
Okay.
So because no matter what, I think we have to do the committee's page at some point too. So that will be, I'll talk to Lisa on how we do that.
Sounds like a good way to do things, though. If somebody comes up with an issue and somebody gets assigned to take point on it,
Yeah.
and then you become the person who does it.
Right.
You guys were
I
talking
do
about
know
that
how to
earlier.
update the website.
Yeah, do you? Yeah.
I do, because I do it at the senior center and I also do it for the cultural council.
Does anybody have anything else?
You don't have enough on your list?
No, never. Never. There's always room for more. There's always
I'll
room for more.
add one more thing. Just thinking about what Dick was saying earlier about you wanted trails to be accessible. That just popped a question into my head. How accessible are the trails in the state forest? Do we know? Because
There's one.
The Mozinski,
They claim that there's one through the Cedar Swamp that is accessible. The issue with that is the boardwalk going through the Cedar Swamp might be accessible, go like trying to get there across the grass and the sand and the beach to get to that cedar.
That's
good to
the
know.
difficult thing about the laws is that the projects that they do need to be accessible, but getting there, they don't have to make it accessible.
Yeah.
You see that it's like at Purgatory, for example. There's a deep in the chasm, there's a path that is accessible, but you got to climb through the chasm to get to it.
Right.
So it's a really weird aspect about the law that is a very.
It's one of those things where they're checking a box and they're not
They're not-
actually making sure that what they're doing is
It's the
going to
letter
work
of the
for
law as
somebody.
opposed to the
Right,
spirit
right.
of the law.
Correct.
Right.
So they don't have to make getting all the way there, or, I don't know this trail, but they don't have, typically, if they build a boardwalk, it needs to be, but the path to get there doesn't, until they do a substantial improvement to that path. So basic maintenance doesn't trigger it, but a substantial improvement of that path would then trigger it to be like all the rules and slopes and all these other things would then trigger. But until then, forcing people to do it's more, I think advisory is more trying to convince people that maybe now is the right time to do that. we don't have the ability to force an action on things like that, as far as I understand the laws.
Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of wanted to is it's almost like a chicken and egg question too, is there are a lot of things in town, and Douglas is not unique in the aspects of old towns in New England, old buildings, things like that, they just can't be easily made accessible. Our Historical Society building is not accessible, and yet they held they hosted the Smithsonian thing that came around. It was hosted, I believe it was in that building, they hosted it.
So there are requirements.
And you couldn't get to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, and this kind of gets, lost my train of thought there for a moment. I guess this is kind of what I was hoping a survey might get at, is the chicken and the egg question is, people don't think about making things accessible because they don't see people needing things accessible. But then people don't come out because things aren't accessible, so then nobody sees people needing things accessible because they're not coming out, because they're not accessible. So it's like...
Vicious cycle, right?
Right, it is, so it's.
I could provide a little bit. So compliance on that is for programs, that would fall under programs. And programs there is an obligation to either make it accessible or provide an accommodation where they can participate, even if it's not equal and exact participation, but that there's a method of participating. So if that makes sense. So
It does, yes.
there is a requirement for that, but again, people may not know that they're just trying to put something on they don't even realize. And so things like that, maybe finding a better process to make these things known that people may want to attend, and maybe reasonable accommodations can be made. And that is the obligation if it's a town-run program.
Right.
It is an obligation under it, but I think identifying those and then ahead of time so that changes can be made to the program.
Which is,
and I
I
can
suggested Oktoberfest.
And that would be working also with me, because as the ADA officer, I'm supposed to make sure as best I can that if an accommodation is needed, that I find a way to get that accommodation if it's possible to accommodate.
So here, this question, I have no idea what the answer to this one would be. The ADA requires that anybody putting something on open to the public, and this includes temporary outdoor things, i.e. Oktoberfest. There's something that's going on down at the ball field coming up this summer. I can't remember what it is right now, but it's a sensory, low sensory.
In the park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Technically, and I saw some pictures from, I believe, last year's or the years before, and some of the things that they're supposed to do weren't done. And so I'm just kind of wondering if they're aware of those things, that they're supposed to do it, but now they're not a town group, but it's on town property. So I guess, where does...
So
do we know where the boundary is, things
so
like that?
ADA affects only municipal things. The private things are run through AAB, our Architectural Access Board. It's similar but different, and it runs through state, not federal. ADA is a federal program.
Right.
So private things run differently. So like buildings, if a private building is renovated, the bathrooms and accessibility have slightly different requirements than ADA. It follows the state's rules. And those are regulated through my office. So if I see a commercial I'm doing it right now for the new store that's going up, just the bathrooms and making sure that has the right types of bathrooms and the right number of accessible bathrooms. That runs through AAB, just for the clarity. So as far as I understand the ADA Commission, it's related to all things in the town related to ADA specifically. And I'm not sure if it would then cross over to private functions where a different set of regulations are actually enforced on that, like parking, for example. Private parking is AAB, and so,
I
yeah.
guess what I was thinking is that this particular thing, I was thinking of the picnic and the park and Oktoberfest, those two things kind of come to mind because I did actually at one point, for other reasons, under the ADA law, the federal ADA law, that law does address those kinds of things.
Okay.
So that's, I guess, so if Architectural Access Board also does, are they just, is it the Architectural Access Board is taking that piece of ADA and they're kind of funneling that, whereas what you do funnels other parts of it, kind of thing, or what we do would funnel other parts.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Well, AAB applies to what things that people are doing, and there may be compliance requirements under those. When it comes to, and I'm not that familiar with like events and things like that, private events and things like that. I'd just be honest, I'm used to building enforcement, which is a little bit easier and more straightforward.
Right.
Because I get plans and I can review them, versus events, which I don't review events. It's not something that comes through my department. So I do not know exactly. AAB, so when ADA law was created, the states were given opportunity to create their own set of laws. If the federal government deemed them to be adequate, the states were given the internal right to manage that. That's kind of how AAB was created. And so they are separate, but ADA specifically applies to municipal, and everything else is typically AAB. But if I'm not fully correct on that, I'm happy to learn. So, but anyway, they are. Okay. There is a divide there between the. And so, as far as I understand the scope of this commission, it would be focused heavily on municipal things. And maybe it's gray if there's a municipal building or facility, but then a private event. I don't know the answer to that specific scenario. So that's quite unique.
Because then you get the private event on town property. Like, I get where you're coming from.
Right.
I do.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know if you're familiar with Oktoberfest.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know the Douglas one, but I know what Oktoberfest
It's on Main Street.
is. Okay.
Like, I don't know how that would work. Like, that's something we can definitely ask around. I don't know how they...
I don't know where the regulatory line is on that. That's simply something I don't know, but I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for reasonable accommodations for people if it can be done. I don't know why an organizer would say we can't figure something out. I mean, I think that would be good to talk to them. That does go into coordinate activities with other local groups. I think that definitely falls within your charter or whatever that is.
We can definitely look into it. We'll put it on the agenda. Try to get somewhere and figure out who does it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Who puts the
I mean,
guideline down.
that may even be something like from the Mass Office on Disability, saying, okay, what do you guys know about this kind of stuff, type thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if they get a permit for Oktoberfest or how that works. Do you know what I mean? To close Main Street and set up shop. I don't know how any of that works, but we can definitely ask. And if we just gave an idea to the selectmen on what we think their reasonable accommodation is, and like a guideline, right? Like that would be it's part of the events thing. I think. But we can definitely figure that out. Does anybody have anything else? So our next meeting, so we're all on the same page, would be the 6th. Do we agree? Do I read the calendar right?
It's like the first.
That's the first full week.
Yeah. Because this is the third Thursday of this month.
Correct. So there wouldn't be any.
The 6th would be the first Thursday.
6th would be 1st of August.
Yep.
Okay. August 6th at 4 p.m., next meeting.
Just make sure somebody coordinates and schedules the room.
I'm going to schedule it. I'll take care of scheduling and
Okay.
making sure we have a room. It's either going to be this room or that room, I don't
Yeah.
know. But I don't think there's many meetings on Thursdays normally.
No.
So,
Especially,
Be
There's
good.
like Heritage and Honor, but I think
they're at
that's
nighttime.
about-
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little later, yes.
well, if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you.